Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be covering the yellow budget deck from the Special Booster 1.0 format, and this is a really interesting budget deck because there's technically two variants of the budget deck. There is one with starter deck cards and one without starter deck cards. So yellow is one of the three colors in 1.0 that got a starter deck, and really the yellow cards in 1.0 are supposed to really help support that starter deck, and it kind of shows just in the quality of the cards and the options available to us that the yellow starter deck is very important for yellow 1.0. But regardless, we still have enough cards in Yellow 1.0 to make a separate deck out of it, and a deck with just 1.0 cards. But I am also going to be covering a yellow budget deck if you do have the yellow starter deck. So I'm just going to start off with the deck without any starter deck cards, just to kind of highlight what you could build out of Yellow 1.0. So going over the deck really quickly, I'm running 4 copies of Kyaromon just because it's a digitama. Its ability doesn't matter because it's never going to happen. We just want it because we need a digitama. And this is the cheapest option available to us. Next up, running 4 copies of Tsukaimon. So Tsukaimon's just that value vanilla card, pretty solid. Next up, 4 copies of Kyaromon. So Kyaramon's in here just to try to help us draw some extra cards if we have a low hand count. Next, 4 copies of Tinkermon, because Tinkermon combos with another card in the deck. Next, 4 copies of Labramon, because Labramon's inheritable ability is really good, where when one of our opponent's Digimon is deleted by having their DP reduced to 0, then we get to draw a card, and we are going to be doing a little bit of that in the deck. Next, 4 copies of Repamon, because Repamon is a champion with a very low play cost, so it makes it just as efficient to play as a rookie, in case we don't see a rookie. Ciceromon's in here just because our options are rather limited, and Ciceromon does have the jamming ability, so that could help you aggro out against the opponent a little bit better, just because you won't have a Digimon that dies to security checks, because Yellow does have some rather low DP on their Digimon. Next, 4 copies of Petermon, because Petermon combos with Tinkermon, and having a very nice and powerful on-play ability to just get Tinkermon out for free, whether it's in your hand or your trash. It's just a very solid card to have on a budget. Next, running 4 copies of Sirenmon. So Sirenmon is just another value vanilla card, very low play cost, very low evolve cost, which makes it a very good card. Next up, running 4 copies of Piximon. So Piximon's a pretty interesting card considering it has some rather high DP, and that's all we're really looking to use this card for, is just its high DP. Next, we have Slash Angemon. He is one of the main megas of the deck, if not the main mega of the deck. He's just very powerful with his nice on Digivolve ability to reduce one of the opponent's Digimon by minus 8,000, which could help trigger our Labramon's ability to let us draw cards, and he just acts as a very powerful and very solid form of removal. Next, running 4 copies of Magnadramon. So Magnadramon is really good because we could both play it or Digivolve up into it and not really feel bad. So Magnadramon allows us to recover 2 on play if we have 3 or fewer security. So if we're trying to race the opponent, Magnadramon can help us win the race by giving us some extra health. And then on top of which, she has a really nice when attacking ability to let us play our level 3 yellow Digimon from our hand for free. And as you can see, we are running 16 yellow level 3s, so that just kind of enforces the fact that her on-attack ability is going to trigger and making the card very good to use. Next, we have 2 copies of Blade of Truth. Blade of Truth is in here just to try to help us get some extra card draw. And then lastly, we have Symphony number 1. So Symphony number 1 is our big removal option card, where one of the opponent's Digimon gets minus 7,000 DP, and then again, it combos really nice with Labramon on the field in the source, where if the Digimon gets removed from having its DP reduced, then we get to draw a card off of it, and this card also synergizes really nicely with Slash Angemon if we have the memory to do it, where you could just minus 8,000 with Slash Angemon and then minus 7,000 with Symphony, and that could kill a lot of potential Digimon. Even though it is a lot of memory, it's still something very powerful you could do. So this is just the basic rundown of the yellow budget deck without any starter deck cards. But as you can see, with starter deck cards, the deck does change quite a bit. So with the starter deck cards, we are going to be running Tsukaimon because on a budget, Tsukaimon is just the better of the digitamas that we have available to us because, he just already comes in the starter deck. And Tsukaimon has a really powerful ability where he could potentially give 1000 DP to your Digimon if one of the opponent's Digimon was deleted by not having any DP. So again, yellow kind of has been playing around with DP reduction, and this is just a great card for rewarding that. We're still going to be running Tinkermon just because Tinkermon combos very nicely with Petermon. We're still going to be running Labramon because Labramon is just a very, very powerful card by allowing us to get some extra card draws when we delete the opponent's Digimon by reducing their DP to 0. You could still run Tsukaimon, but Salmon is just a more budget-friendly option if you already bought the starter deck, just because it's the same exact card, just came in the starter deck and not in the booster. Then we're going to play 4 copies of Patamon, just because Patamon is doing something very similar to Labramon, where it is rewarding us when we delete one of our opponent's Digimon by reducing its DP to 0, and this reward is by gaining us a memory instead of drawing us a card, so gaining a memory is still a very, very good reward to have, because it could help put the opponent off of their memory count, and you could use it to set up some really interesting plays. We're still going to be running Rapamon because Rapamon is just a very good Digimon on a budget. We're still going to be running Petermon because we're going to be running Tinkermon, and that's just allowing you to play some very aggressive Digimon together. Next, we're going to be adding in 4 Unimon. So Unimon is just a pretty solid Digimon just because he has the blocker ability, so he allows you to just have a blocker to stop some attacks. We're still going to be running for Sirenmon because Sirenmon's just, again, that really good value vanilla card, low to evolve, low to play for its level. Then we're going to be adding in 4 copies of Angelwomon, just because I think Angelwomon's when Digivolving ability is really good by allowing us to recover if we have some low security. We're still going to be playing Slash Angemon because Slash Angemon is the main mega of the deck, and Slash Angemon's removal ability is just very, very powerful. We're dropping Magnadramon down to 2 just because Magnadramon is still a very, very good card. It's just better when we use its on-play ability, and we don't want to on-play it a whole bunch of times. But again, if you really want to just use its when attacking ability to Digivolve up into it, then that is still a fine and valid option available to you. And then we're going to be adding in 2 copies of the starter deck Seraphimon, just because Seraphimon is playing with that whole minus DP. So we could use Seraphimon to set up a good chain of events to lead to the opponent's DP being 0 and then triggering a whole bunch of our effects. We're still going to be playing Symphony. We're just going to be reducing the amount of Symphony from 4 to 3, just because Symphony doesn't have a security effect, but its removal effect is still very, very powerful and very, very relevant. And then we're going to be adding in 3 Seven Heavens, just because this is the larger removal spell. Like, Symphony's already pretty good, and then Seven Heavens is just another really good removal option. This time it does have a security ability, so whether it's in our hand or in the security, it's still going to be a very powerful card, especially in combination with some of our other cards. So for the most part, this is just what the yellow deck is going to be doing with the starter deck cards. I'll have both deck lists down in the description below. And then in terms of other cards you could possibly think about using or adding into the deck, some of these cards are a little bit on the higher rarity side, so they might not be as affordable, but they should still be relatively affordable depending on when and who you buy it from. So you could be running Angemon. So Angemon just has a nice on-play ability to reduce the opponent's DP. So kind of just more removal, except this time it's on a body. You could also think about playing Mistymon. So Mistymon is just, again, another on-play with some solid removal ability on a body. You could also play TK. So TK isn't necessarily the most budget-friendly card, considering that he is going to be seeing a lot more play in a lot of other yellow decks, so he just has a lot of attention on him. But he is still a very powerful yellow card that you still would want to try to run if possible, just because he is 1, a memory fixer, and 2, he helps you fix your consistency by letting you look at your security and then add a card from your security to your hand, and then you get to recover 1. So that's just really, really good, just because, again, if you have a lot of security, then you have a lot more options to pick from to fix your hand to get into a better state. You could also think about running the starter deck Angemon, just because he has a nice on-attacking ability of allowing you to gain 1 memory, potentially. We have this Patamon with the on-play ability to try to look for our yellow tamers. We're not really going to be running a whole lot of yellow tamers for this type of deck, but like if you want to prep for a different style of deck, then Patamon is really good for that, just because, again, the on-play looking for tamers is never a bad thing. You could also think about running Magna Angemon if budget allows. Magna Angemon is pretty good because he has the on-play ability of just being able to recover, on top of which he also has a nice inheritable where he could give plus 1000 DP for every 3 security cards we have, and as we know, Yellow's DP isn't exactly the strongest, so having a Digimon that helps with our DP is definitely really, really good. And inversely, if it's easier for you to get Gatomon, then the promo Gatomon that does a similar inheritable effect is also just as good. If you want to try to splurge on one of the more powerful megas for the deck, you could think about running Kentarosmon, because Kentarosmon for 1.0 is actually really, really solid, because his when Digivolved ability, just nuking the opponent's board of having security attacks, just allows you to basically live a little bit longer and allows you to aggress on the opponent a little bit easier, or just build up. On top of which, his on-deletion ability, allowing you to have some good DP reduction, is just another upside to having the card. Then, as the main Digitama, you're going to want to try to get 4 copies of Cupimon no matter which deck you're using, but again, Cupimons are rare, and trying to keep things as affordable as possible. We don't want to play as many rares as possible, so I just think Cupimon is a good rare to pick up if you could afford it. You could think about adding in the starter deck TK if you have the starter deck already, just because it allows your security Digimon to be a little bit more beefier, which means they're going to potentially delete the opponent's Digimon that much easier during security checks. And then if you also just want to kind of continue on that control style of deck, you could also think about running Heaven's Charm, just because Heaven's Charm comes in the starter deck, and on top of which, Heaven's Charm just allows you to minus the opponent's DP on one of their Digimon by 2000, and then the security effect just adds it to your hand, so you could use it to like set up some combo plays to try to kill off one of the opponent's Digimon by reducing its DP by enough. So these are all just really solid potential options that you could think about running or adding into either of the variants of the deck. I do think the variant with the starter deck is the way to play, but I do understand that not everyone has the yellow starter deck to play, so that's why I kind of built both. Again, here's just the quick list for the yellow with starter deck cards, and here is the list for yellow without the starter deck cards. So it really is just what you could afford and what you have access to, and I definitely think that yellow still has some really solid options. It's just not going to be the strongest color, and again, yellow, red, and blue are kind of in set 1.0, meant to be played with some of the starter deck cards. And if you like this content and want to help support the channel, I do have a TCG Player affiliate link down in the description below. If you use that link to purchase anything off of tcgplayer.com, then some of the money will end up going to supporting me in the channel. Then I have also partnered up with Overcard Gamers on Facebook, and they are nice enough to print some of my playmat designs. I will have more playmat designs going up in the future, so feel free to check back on them and some of my designs. And then whenever you mention my YouTube channel to them, they will give a $2 discount off of any of the playmats with my designs on them. And that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. And I'll see you in the next video.